And I suppose a lot can be said for the physical symmetry. This is now looking very chaotic. I like the simplicity of a mirrored system where I know where each half of the mirror is, and I know where the nodes are in the system. I think one of the things I struggle with RAID Z3 is I think this is what people tend to do, is they tend to build each RAID Z3 pool within a single enclosure. You shouldn't be doing that. You should at least, if it's RAID Z3 and you're saying 3 plus 3, then you should probably almost treat it like a mirrored system. So you have half of it. And at the moment, I don't think there's many people who would say you should go beyond 3 plus 3 for RAID Z3. The good news is, it's the same space as a 3 plus 3 RAID 1 plus 0 configuration, but you get better availability because you can take 3 disk failures rather than, well, you can take 3 disk failures, but they all have to be on the same side. I suppose when I came to the United States for the first time, but I don't think it's just the United States, it's when I go into the US Embassy, McDonald's, I am hit, well, it's everywhere. When I go into the US Embassy, I am hit by the tyranny of choice. I'm the asshole at the front who can't choose, because I just see choice. And I'm thinking, hey, I've never had, so I'm from the UK, where for years we had 4 TV channels. And you seem to like one of them a lot. So, but we had 4 TV channels, and we liked a cheese sandwich or a chicken sandwich. This thing about what kind of bread do you want? There is bread. What spread do you want? There is butter, and there is cheese. I don't care whether it's, Monterey Jack or goat's cheese. No, goat's cheese, the choice goes down to which side of the mountain does it graze on? When was the rye harvested for this bread? What type of yeast, for goodness sake? Like San Francisco, the whole industry based on just the right kind of yeast, yeah? Sourdough. That's brilliant marketing, isn't it? You take something like that and you say, that's a good thing, right? That's what we've got. So the tyranny of choice, and that's really what we're doing here with Nexenter, is there's a lot you could do with RSF1, and we're saying, no, go for one of the basic sandwiches, because these are good, and these work. Maybe it's because we're from the UK, very conservative in our outlook, but go for a basic sandwich, so we can do you a cheese sandwich or a chicken sandwich. I wouldn't recommend the liver. But it's about hiding complexity at the moment and keeping it simple. I know, keeping it simple, stupid. And I guess what we're saying to you guys at Want More is it's going to be evolution rather than revolution. And we're still waiting for best practices to fall out. I mean, even on SSDs or RAID Z levels, the best practices are not well established yet. So we're going to go very conservatively with what we know works and what we think will do the job if you're serious about high availability. If you just want it cheap, the door's there. So we're going to mandate some best practices. Let's just a little bit about what we've done in terms of making RSF1 the plugin for Nexenter. So there's been a close collaboration. Our engineers talk to Nexenter engineers almost on a daily basis, it would seem. It's a plugin. It's the endorsed, you buy it from Nexenter. And they've said some very nice things about it. And we're proud of it, and we'll stand by it. We've done quite a lot of work to integrate it with NMV and NMC. And we've brought our clustering expertise to ZFS. So we've done a lot of the work on making pool import-export work in a cluster. That's Smith versus Stoniff technology. The idea of the VDEV heartbeat, that's something that we've developed. This is our IP, this is our value add. And one of the things that we found as we developed this is we were able to improve the boot time, because there is a sequential nature to the way that Solaris boots, particularly when it comes to importing ZFS pools. And you'll actually find that if you put all your ZFS data under the control of RSF1, it'll boot faster, because we've taken some of the serial nature out of that. So there's quite a lot of our value add in what RSF1 does on NextEnter. Yes, we support a 2-node cluster, and we will do active-active and active-passive. And we've also worked with vendors like Co-RAID, and we've had hardware from people like the DDR drive, and we've done work with these technologies in our labs. We did some serious performance work with Co-RAID, and I've gone from the position where I was a strong skeptic to one where I'm actually quite impressed. To be able to get about a gigabyte a second, just shy of a gigabyte a second out of a 10 gig link of AOE, it's pretty good going, actually. And then you've got the ability to, you know, to buy the Co-RAID actually with two. It has two 10 gig ports, CX4 ports, and I can have 2 of those, and their driver just takes care of the multipathing and the load balancing without me having to worry about it, and provides me with one just /dev disk /dev RDSK entry, so there's no added complexity. So the MPXIO type complexity is all lost. It's all just covered. So we've done quite a lot of work with that, implementing the fast fail modes and so on for AOE with them. And so we're not just here to, you know, there's RSF1, take it or leave it. No, we're serious about this, making RSF1 add real value. But it's really important that you do understand that good, cheap, fast, pick any 2. Okay, so I think what we'll do now, well, I know what we're going to do now because it's the next slide. I'm trying to be a little bit more nonchalant about it. There's a series of screenshots just to show a little walkthrough of how easy it is to set up an HA plugin, HA cluster plugin. The first thing we have to do is we have to get SSH bindings between both nodes. Because this is the fundamental thing. The 2 nodes in the cluster need to be able to talk to one another, to share configuration information, and to pass control one to the other. So the first thing we do is we do go into this thing where we're setting up the SSH bindings. And that's something you've probably done already if you've got more than one node anyway, because it's useful. It allows you, for example, to be able to control more than one. I'm getting very near to the loudspeaker, aren't I? It allows you to control more than one node from one instance of NMV. You can pull down, and so here we've got node next test 3, and its partner in the cluster is going to be next test 4. The second thing we have to do is, it'll say you have not initialized the cluster. So the next thing we do is we initialize the cluster. The cluster is uninitialized. So we need to tell the cluster about what nodes it has. We give it a group name, a description, and the first and second appliances in the cluster. Disk. Should be a K, shouldn't it? We're very British. Disk scan, scanning for all available disks. So we're configuring a network heartbeat. We can also configure the disk heartbeat, and in this version, we're configuring it for a single drive that will not be part of any pool. So you're actually taking a hit on this. It's a drive that has only one function in life. That will change. You can also have a serial heartbeat if the systems are within RS-232 distance, or can be repeated, I guess, over some Cat5 system, serial between the two systems as well. And network monitoring is a part of checking the health of your network. So even if you can see the storage, even if you can see the other node through the serial or the network, but if the network that I provide my virtual IPs on is not working, then I can't participate in providing services, so I must give those services to the other node.
I have a question there.
Yeah.
Without this heartbeat, can I not configure this heartbeat, let's say, and still have it? Yeah, you know.
You just need 2 heartbeats, yeah? Any combination. Or just the one. But you know, we wouldn't recommend it, because usually it should be 2.
Yeah.
At least yes, you wouldn't recommend it, because anyway it's better that the active node is the one that actually owns it.
Yeah.
I presume you're saying you don't want to use this, you don't want to dedicate a single drive. Yeah. As Phil was saying, we're doing in the next version, we will use the drives as part of the Z pool, so we will freely
Right. For the rest of the room, I'll just repeat that little private discussion. So the question is, do I have to have a disk? And we're saying, well, you have to have at least 2 heartbeats. That's the first thing. Another thing to state, which wasn't quite in the discussion, but I think is important, is that, again, we are simplifying what we're reducing what RSF could do to something that makes sense in a, let's reduce the number of calls we take as far as next enter is concerned. So, yes, we would like you to have a disk for heartbeat, please, if at all possible. As time goes on, we will be using the new VDEV heartbeat mechanism and possibly adding support for more than one network, even private network heartbeats, which are all things that RSF1 can do today. It's just a question of what becomes available when. It's this evolution rather than revolution, keeping it as simple as possible, trying to reduce the number of calls that we take and making sure that when we take the call we know roughly where you are on the planet. So having selected a disk, we save a configuration and we're initialized. So that's the cluster is now configured, and now we can add volumes that we have previously defined. Now obviously these volumes have to have shared storage, but you're pretty much done at this point. You've already got a cluster that's working. The heartbeat mechanism is now operational once it's initialized. And so this is at the point where we're now provisioning services really to the cluster. And it is as simple as you're selecting the volumes. Now, any services that you are providing from those volumes automatically become part of the cluster. So if you've already done iSCSI volumes from this volume, if you're doing NFS exports, CIF shares, sorry? Fiber, yeah, iSCSI or fiber channel using Comstar. That's already taken care of at the moment where you take, so the unit that the thing that defines the service is the volume, and everything that you've associated with that volume now goes into the cluster and becomes highly available. So it is very, very simple. Sorry?
In an active live chat, you get AM, UA, so can you do multi-pathing across the host? Yes,
The question was, in active with fiber channel, can you do multi-pathing across the heads? And the answer was yes, you can.